we could charge you hourly for us to track your vocals every time.
Yeah.
That benefits us.
Yeah.
But I think it's more beneficial to the artist to spend a fraction of what they're going to spend in the long term, have this equipment. Not only can they practice with it, they can make demos with it. They also can get their final vocals with it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Like, microphones have gotten so affordable. It used to cost so much money to make music, especially when you're dealing with tape and like you have to have experts that know how to use all this, vintage analog equipment. And then the microphones are so expensive. And nowadays it's like, man, these lower end microphones are so much better than what we had access to, and interfaces and the computer software. It's like, it's just absolutely insane how accessible it is.
The only kind of pitfall, as I've talked through artists with this, is like, if you literally don't have a space in your home to be able to do this, like, that does make it difficult. And I understand that. And like, that's to be worked with.
But like a bedroom?
Yeah, a bedroom. I actually take back what I said. I've gotten really creative with like spaces.
Yeah.
Like, when I was in college, like, I used my dorm room.
Yeah.
It wasn't very acoustically treated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd put like blankets up on the walls.
You have final songs on Spotify from that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was really happy with how they came out and how they sounded.
Welcome to Project Songbird.
Hey, pew, 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 pew.
There's a sound effect. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about really all the upsides of owning your own microphone and interface. We want to put together some different kind of content specifically to help you make those decisions. So we're going to put together a blog on like different microphone recommendations that we have for different budgets.
Yep. And we'll link that blog on this video in the description so you guys can know exactly what we're talking about.
Yep. And eventually down the road, we want to put out very specific content for how to use some of that equipment and get the most out of it. But the point of today's conversation is really the importance of owning your own microphone and interface and how you can utilize it as an artist. I think a lot of artists might feel like they're not good with technology, or that's like a really difficult thing to figure out. And so there's a lot of apprehension behind it. And so we kind of want to give our thoughts on it. So there's going to be a couple of different ways that you can utilize and get the most out of having your own microphone. So we're just going to kind of start with one and kind of build upon it. And they're all applicable at all stages, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So the first thing is owning your own microphone is amazing for practice.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes artists will actually sit down with the producer and start tracking their song, and there's so many things that they haven't fleshed out.
Yeah.
They haven't thought about the harmonies. They haven't thought about if they want to have doubles in there or not. They haven't thought about how they're going to say certain words. Right. Or they haven't even heard what it really sounds like recorded, and they might hear things back and be like, ooh, I don't like that I do that on that word. Or so I think just for practice and for gaining some confidence, I think those are two kind of, we'll stick with practice. For practice, it's just so necessary.
Yeah. And you're gonna you hit on this a little bit with it might sound differently when you record it, but like, even if you practice, so to speak, without a mic, it's going to sound differently to you without headphones on, without a microphone, than it would being translated through a microphone. Yeah. So you might be thinking like, oh, I can practice without a mic. And it's like, it's not going to be the same thing. It'll be different.
I think at the very least, I always tell people to make voice recording practices, because just to be able to hear yourself recorded back is so valuable.
Yeah.
But man, adding the headphones and the mic, that also gives you that confidence.
Yes.
Which is that other piece of being able to practice to when you come in, you already know what it feels like to wear headphones. You know what your voice is going to sound like through a microphone.
You know what you want to be hearing.
You know what you want to be hearing.
How loud the instrumental needs to be.
Yep.
You know, how loud your voice needs to be. Reverb, things like that.
And I know it's like different. It's like, there's an element of it. It's like takes away some of the specialness of standing in front of a microphone. Cause that could be like an exciting thing to think about. Right. Of like, oh man, like I'm in the studio. Like I have a microphone in front of me. Yeah. But you want to be as comfortable as possible. You want to have practiced this a lot just because it is a different experience. Yeah. I think of like, even when I'm teaching guitar lessons, I'm telling people like, hey, if you're going to be performing standing up, you got to practice the song standing up. Totally. I know it doesn't seem like a big difference, but it is. Yeah. Like the ergonomics of your hands change when you stand up than when you sit down. Yeah. Like how you feel, the way you look at the guitar. So you want to just have all the reps possible before you go in and do this thing. Because at the end of the day, when you actually record your vocals for real, like you're going to have a lot of feelings about it, and you just want it to win.
Yeah.
Be the best it can be.
Yeah. Basically, what we're saying is you need to, as best you can, recreate the experience you're going to be having doing the actual thing, not just a makeshift version of it.
Yeah. So at the very least, if you have a microphone and an interface and there's free computer software,
right,
you can at least practice and kind of build out what you're thinking you want to do vocally and try some ideas out and get some confidence. At the very least.
Yes.
Like low-hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. For not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Maybe $200 you could do all that.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
Totally.
And then how much money does that save you from actually going into a studio and like recording, but then not being happy with it and then wanting to come back another day or another day?
Yeah.
So yeah, for my brain, it's like that $200 investment is huge.
Yeah. Again, especially if we're thinking long-term on your behalf. Like if you're wanting to do this long-term, it'll save you lots of time and money.
You want to put out an album a year or a couple singles a year.
Yeah.
Like, that adds up fast.
For sure.
Yeah. I think also owning your own microphone allows you to kind of demo out songs a lot more.
Yeah.
So again, if you do play guitar, this will allow you to actually get like a better demo guitar track.
Yeah.
But if you don't play any instruments and someone sends you stuff, it allows you to actually put your voice on it and really get a feel for how it's going to feel in these parts. You might realize, oh, every time I sing the chorus, my voice isn't adding any energy. I need to like think of a different melody that might be a little higher or more exciting. But you wouldn't know that until you actually put your vocal on that track and then listen back.
Yeah, for sure. And let's even, for clarity, we talked about demos before, but for clarity, like, can we clarify what a demo even is?
Go
and,
for
like,
it, Kamo.
What is the purpose of it? A demo is like the basic, and it can range, but in general, the function of it is it's supposed to be the basic framework for the song and the making of the song. So it can be as simple as your vocal and a piano, or your vocal and an acoustic guitar, or as simple as your vocal and that's it.
Yep.
But it gives you and everybody else something to work off of to begin to create the song. Mm-hmm. Without a demo, it's very rare for people to try to create a song without first at least demoing it. Because in the demo, you're trying, in my mind, at least how I process it, is you're trying to get three things right. Is the key, the arrangement, so the song sections, you know, and then the tempo. And you can figure out all that out when you're demoing by yourself, and it doesn't have to be a quality finished product. No. That can be done with the $200 setup that you're saying. Yeah. But it sets the direction for the rest of the song, and it's really important to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's also crucial for working with other people.
Yeah.
I think like if you're hoping one day to work with a label or any kind of like company that's going to help your music, like they're going to expect you to own your own microphone and be able to produce some things with it.
Right.
I think also if you're planning on working with other people, if you want to work with people that don't live locally, it's just such a good tool. Again, you don't want to be booking studio time for every little thing that you have to give people every part of the process.
Yeah.
That'll get expensive.
For something as small as a demo, like I just mentioned. Yes. It gets expensive. Yeah. Again, going back to the label thing, like a label doesn't, especially if you're smaller starting off, don't have a lot of like fan power behind you. Like they're not going to always want to pay for that. And they're not going to always want to wait for that. Like you may be working on, even if you're independent and you have a team around you or whatever, people are going to be working on somewhat like stricter deadlines, and they can't wait 3 or 4 weeks for you to get the next booking session in just to do a demo.
Yeah.
And so that's another part of it. And you mentioned this, I think, already, but it can be done on your own time.
Yes. Yep.
And on your own schedule, and not when you can book up the street at so-and-so studio 4 weeks from now.
Yeah. You wake up at 6 a.m. and have 3 hours before work.
Yeah.
You could work on something.
Yeah.
You stay up really late, you want to work on something. You have a lunch break, you want to work on something. It's amazing to be able to do it on your own time.
Yeah.
You have kids.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
You tell your spouse to go take them outside for an hour and you work on something.
Yeah. And you can also, I just thought about this, like you can also do it without the pressure of somebody being around. Like there's so much, a lot of artists probably haven't experienced this because they're always doing it with somebody else. There's so much beauty and so much freedom in being able to do as many takes as you want without having to worry about like somebody else's time. Yeah. Like that has allowed for me, going back to the practice thing, like that's allowed for me to be able to like improve on like my vocal etiquette with recording and all the things. Like when you don't people when you know you're being watched and surveyed, you're going to act differently, just naturally, than you would if nobody else was around.
I mean, how hard do we all sing when we're in the car alone?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
we're going for notes we would never go for in front of other people.
Greater level of expression
yeah.
is what you're getting at. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool. Like microphones have gotten so affordable.
Yeah.
It used to cost so much money to make music, especially when you're dealing with tape and like you have to have experts that know how to use all this, you know, vintage analog equipment. And then the microphones are so expensive. And nowadays it's like, man, these lower end microphones are so much better than what we had access to, and interfaces and the computer software. It's like, it's just absolutely insane how accessible it is. So I think part of what we've seen is working in the industry is the industry's already moved this way.
Yeah.
A lot of people already track things in their own home studios, on their own. They're doing things at very high level on their own. I think people would be shocked at where some of these tracks come from on some of these major hits that they hear.
Right.
Like they weren't produced in a big studio.
Yeah.
I think for the average artist, they might not be aware of this shift.
Sure.
And so maybe they're expecting that like, hey, when I hire someone, I expect to go to a recording studio and I expect to have this process. I think part of what we're saying is like, it's okay to lean into like, this is how things have been changing and they're only going to continue to change. If we thought mics have only gotten more accessible now, I mean, 20 years from now, equipment and a way to learn things like with YouTube and other classes online, all of this is only making it easier and easier for people to do at a high level.
Yeah.
And as the next generations are more and more tech savvy, like for them, hooking up a microphone into an interface into your computer is like the most simplest thing possible.
Totally.
You know, this like blew people's mind when it first came out, and like you had to think through all these different things.
Yeah.
It's just so simple and cheap.
Yeah. And we're not trying to like incite fear of like, all right, like you're either going to do this or you're out of music altogether.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey, because this is becoming more accessible to you, it would be very advantageous for you to take advantage of it and to learn.
Yeah.
It's not as intimidating as it might seem. There's, as with anything, there's a learning curve, but this can be learned rather quickly.
We could charge you hourly for us to track your vocals every time.
Yeah.
That benefits us.
Yeah.
But I think it's more beneficial to the artist to spend a fraction of what they're going to spend in the long term, have this equipment. Not only can they practice with it, they can make demos with it. They also can get their final vocals with it.
Yeah.
If you get a nice enough microphone, now we're talking a little bit more than $200, but not that much more.
Yeah.
If you get a nice enough microphone and interface and you're in some kind of space where you don't have too much background noise, ambient noise, you can actually make your final product vocals at home.
For sure.
And again, it benefits us more for us to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're paying us.
Yep.
It's going to benefit you as an artist more for you to learn how to do it. You're going to save more money. You're going to have more freedom. And so at the end of the day, like, this isn't you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
If you're like, I want to buy a microphone just to practice, awesome.
Yeah.
If you're like, I want to buy a microphone so I can practice and make demos, awesome.
Yeah.
If you want to do all three and you want it to be your final vocals in the end, that's awesome too. You can partner with people any part of the way. It's just going to make the process better and easier for you.
Totally.
More affordable, and you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
Kind of simple. I don't know why wouldn't you buy your own microphone?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about this.
I guess fear of how to set it up and use it and fear of what to buy.
Yeah, I would say like the only kind of pitfall as I've talked through artists with this is like if you literally don't have a space in your home to be able to do this, like that does make it difficult, and I understand that. And like that's to be worked with.
But like a bedroom?
Yeah, a bedroom. Yeah, if you have like an office space, like I know a guy who's like going to convert his office space into like a makeshift like little recording studio.
Yeah.
Like that could be cool.
People have used their garages.
Yeah, yeah, you can get really creative.
Yeah.
But
there's even like places to rent sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
Like in downtown areas and things like that. And you know, some of this equipment is so portable.
Yeah.
If you have a laptop, a small interface, and a microphone, you could easily set up in a room randomly one day.
Yeah. I mean, I actually take back what I said. I've gotten really creative with like spaces.
Yeah.
Like when I was in college, like I used my dorm room.
Yeah.
that wasn't very acoustically treated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd put like blankets up on the walls.
You have final songs on Spotify from that.
Yes. Yeah. And I was really happy with how they came out and how they sounded. Whenever I would go like whenever I would go overseas for like months at a time for like mission trips and stuff like that, I'd still bring my microphone with me and like find a little closet space.
Yeah.
And again, final records have come from that. So you can get creative.
You do have to learn a little bit of skills.
Yes.
But it is a fraction of the skill that, I mean, you have to know as a producer. I have to know as an engineer. Like, it's just a very small part. It's not a lot. And this isn't coming from people that do this all the time, so we are taking for granted how easy it is. It's not a lot. It's not rocket science.
For sure.
To make some decent choices. There's a little bit of skill behind it, but you can learn.
Yes.
And so we think it's worth it to invest in.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be a fear. And then price we've already touched on. Like, you're saving so much money in the long run.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing.
Yeah. And going back to like the skill thing that you have to learn, like that if you start small, even with like what you're saying of like, if the purpose of it is even just to get demo vocals.
Yep.
Or to just like be able to practice to, and it never makes it onto any recording ever.
Yep.
Like that's okay too.
Yeah.
And then you build from there of like, oh, okay, I feel comfortable like getting final vocals. Okay, now I have acoustic treatment. Now I feel like it's going to sound good.
Yeah, you can slowly work your way up.
Yeah. Now I know how to comp my own vocals and like pull from different takes.
Yeah.
Now I know how to choose like the right processing and like different verbs and delays. Like you can work your way up for sure.
Yeah.
So
what's also cool too is, in my experience, anything that you buy resells really well.
That's true.
We're not in the part where like you buy a computer and 3 years later it's like a fourth the price. No, it's like you could spend $200 on a microphone and interface and then 2 years later decide you've outgrown it and you want to step up so it's more than a demo.
Yeah.
And you could probably get almost what you paid for that microphone and interface, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So
you gotta take care of it.
Yeah, the risk is just so low.
For sure.
So
yeah. We knew this episode was going to be short because it's such a simple ask.
Yeah.
a simple call to action.
So again, we want to partner with some of these things. We want to put out we're putting out a blog post.
Yes.
So it'll be linked on different equipment that we recommend at different budget levels.
That we have either used or currently use and are very happy to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll give you even different levels of like if this is just really good for demos or if this is like really good for final product, that kind of stuff. We want to do that. And then eventually down the road, we're going to make very specific content on the skills part.
Yeah.
How to set your gain stage, how to do mic positioning, how to examine a room and then make the best decision on which way should the mic face? And like how far should I be from the microphone? What's proximity effect? Like we'll talk through all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because there's a science to it.
There is a science to it, but we want to make a video that specifically breaks down those skills.
Yeah.
And that'll be available down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also want you guys to know that, like, because we know that there's a lot of excitement around the song making process and like it being a whole experience, and how for a time it was, because again, it had to be.
Yep.
There was no way that somebody could have recorded their own vocals at home to begin with. It had to be in the studio with an engineer, with all this equipment and all the things, and
which is an experience.
Which is an experience, and that's amazing.
A fun experience.
And we want you guys to know and like be aware of the fact that it can still be a really fun song making experience with this caveat that you can record at home too. Like if you just did this first step, we're still holding your hand through the rest of the process of making the song, creating the instrumental, tracking with musicians, working through the mix. Like there's a lot to be had in the collaborative effort outside of just this initial stage of the demo making process that you can do. In the end, it can still be an experience and it's better off for you financially, but also for you to feel like you've gotten a quality product out of it as well. So
you've gotten what you wanted out of it.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Go buy a microphone.
Go buy a microphone.